watch me walk out of here pretty doggone quick to be down in Colchester to pick my 10-year-old daughter up from dance. And I just asked the board to envision how many other families are out there that would love to be here tonight. That would love to be here tonight, but they got kids to feed, little ones to feed, and they can't be here. So I'd ask the board to consider the voice of those families that had signed the petition earlier in the year. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Vic Colonna from Ramsden. I won't keep you guys. I've been to several meetings over the last few years, and I know I have utmost faith and trust in you because you guys go through every line item in that budget painstakingly. As Mr. Shea said, not leaving many hours left to go home and be with your family. So, again, I'll try to keep this brief and again, have the trust in you guys to make the right decisions. I agree with the woman from Hampstead, is me, talked about the Hebron education budget. Those numbers are down, the pupils are down, enrollment's down about 400 kids from about 5-6 years ago. So they've got a significant enrollment decrease that has been able to help their budget. As was else mentioned, five cuts in staffing last year from Rham, 5 cuts in staffing this year from Rham. I think everyone's trying to be a team player. As was mentioned at the Board of Selectmen meeting, I heard the quote that Rham is on the highway to heaven. I would disagree with that, and I think many board members would disagree with that. I don't think there's any heaven going on in these budget hearing meetings and the time you're spending going through these budget numbers and trying to crunch wherever you can. And again, we appreciate that. Last year was less than 1% increase. I think if you look at the numbers this year, a high percentage of that 2.79 number, you're talking about salaries and benefits, and you are talking about special education. Some of the most vulnerable in our community that need that money and need that funding. And then you're talking about teachers, our educators. I support them. I think we all should support them. When it comes to athletics, I'm not even sure why we're talking about it, such a small number. It's about 1.4% of the total budget. Of that number, there's pay to play and gate fees. I mean, people have to pay to come watch their kids play sports. It's over $100,000 of revenue that comes into the school from that program. I myself, with 4 kids that are coming through the middle school and high school, would have paid over $4,200 between the middle school and the high school for my kids to play athletics. I will continue to pay that amount. Athletics has been, as Mr. Swanson said, it's an equalizer in the household. My 2 boys are going to the gym every day, almost every day to work out after school. They're not out doing bad stuff. They're not out hanging out at the park. They're not out getting together. It's making them into the young men that I hope to become. And my older son graduated last year, and he's doing the same thing at Western New England. Being active in the school, hitting the gym with his roommate, and getting good grades. And you know, we keep talking about the references to the New England Patriots. We actually do have a Major League Baseball player who was a 2015 All-Star that came out of Rham. And we do have thousands of families over the years that have gotten academic money and athletic money, which translates into a lot of economic growth for the towns. Those families do not have to put that money into out-of-state universities where those kids might be going. That money stays here in the towns. And I don't have that number of what that economic benefit is, but I can tell you that there is one. So my last point is going to be on the CIP, the capital budget. I support the capital budget. You're talking about $300,000. Again, just around 1% of the total Rham budget at $28 million. This is a $75 million facility back when it was built. For the town of Hebron, their budget's $38 million. The CIP budget was $1.2 million. and I'm not even sure how much extra came from the surplus, if any, but that's over 3% of the Hebron budget. So we're at 300,000. I think we're well within a reasonable number for capital for this building and to keep it up. Thank you.
Hi, Tim Kane, Hebron. I had no intention of speaking tonight, but figured everyone else has even been, so. Everyone's talking about the package about adding coaches and conditioning coach for the athletics, and I think that's great. As everyone who knows me knows, I coach just about every sport, not good, but I'm very, very enthusiastic about athletics. And then someone mentioned influence, and that kind of got me thinking. Whatever you guys decide, you guys do an incredible job. Really, I started getting involved and following you guys. I can't believe the effort you guys put forward every year. Okay? I'm very impressed. When you're figuring this out, please make sure you balance the influence that staff, teachers, principals, superintendents have on these kids' life, as well as the possible influence of these coaches. I don't know what the answer is. And hopefully it doesn't have to be an either-or situation. But the teachers in Rham, I think, do an incredible job. Yes, I'm biased. But you got to remember that they see your kids, all our kids, every day. And if you get a good teacher, if you're that kid, and you make that bond with that teacher you see every day, 47 minutes, Monday through Friday, that's the biggest impact that student who is going through trouble, whether it's at home, and I deal with that all Monday through Friday. All right? That teacher or that whoever, that in-school suspension officer, principal, the vice principal, they can have that influence. So I'm hoping, listen, if we can get these coaches in athletics, that's great. But I hope it doesn't come down at the expense of losing some of the other staff members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Good.
Awesome. My name is Ethan Spinelli, 22 Rivendell Road, Marlboro. I am a teacher at Rham. I'm also the president of the Rham Education Association, and I'm also a two-season coach, two-sport coach here at the Rham Middle School. If you go to the Connecticut Interscholastic website for sports, the mission there is very clear on the website. It says sports is to support academic achievement and character education. The key word there being support. So I'll just leave you with the last question, it'll be brief. How is cutting 10 teachers over the past 2 years supporting academics in the classroom? So I urge you to consider that as you're making your decision. I think a strength and conditioning coach would be great. Do we need it? Possibly, I'll let you decide. Adding 5 football coaches and not renewing or not filling teacher positions leaves kind of an uneasy feeling. Like most of you probably here, I moved to these towns for one reason only, and that's the schools. It wasn't because I wanted my children to go off and play professional sports. I think we do a great job with what we have now in athletics supporting academics. But as a gentleman said earlier, academics is the priority of school, the top priority. And if we can somehow find that balance, that would be fantastic. It's a tough job, and I thank you for everything you do up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening. My name is Al Eckert. I'm a resident of Hebron, 62 Wellswood Road. Also a member and chair of the Hebron Board of Finance. And I'm not here tonight to pick on any numbers. I do have some questions in the budget, which I hope you can answer. My questions begin with, has the capital budget actually been approved? If so, will it be voted on separately? And if so, where will the funding be located? Will it be in the operating budget, or will it be in the capital improvement budget? You want me to ask all the questions first?
I prefer to answer, because if I was typing them, and you're quicker than I can type, so.
Okay.
The board did, at an earlier meeting, decide to bifurcate capital for the first time from the operating budget. So there will be a separate, if the board decides to, the board has not decided to vote on an amount or a package. I think it's three, originally might be only two now, it was originally three. So I think after we leave this forum, we'll go into our budget meeting, and at that point, if the capital is going to be on the budget and the number is going to be represented, the board will have to make that motion to accept that and send that to district meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little bit confused with the excess cost number, whether it's in or it's out. If I look on the detailed sheet under
Is that
78,
the 2.79?
that's
that
the
we got today?
$604,000, Dr. Snitsky? And my question is that currently being considered as reducing expenses or not? I mean, if the state legislature decides to, as they're talking about, delay implementation of the new special ed funding for a year and study it, so to speak, is that money already in there, in the budget, in the 2.7%, reducing the expense?
The 2.7 does contain that reduction. It's as if excess costs were continued as it was. I think one thing that needs to be said, and as you look at that particular grant reduction, you need to remember that the state has been cited for lack of support in special education. And because of that citing, they've been forced to increase the amount of money that is coming to special education. Therefore, the meetings that I've been to where the topic has been discussed in detail, they said that was a safe position to take, to use what was slated for excess cost as a budget reduction. But they were saying also that there's a possibility, because of the citation, that number would increase. So we've taken a very conservative stance on that particular item.
So the fact that it's not on the detailed sheet, just, it should be there. You're projecting 604,000, and it's been reduced. It's been used to either cover some expense or reduce expense.
Now, if I could add, which sheet are you referring to? I'm sorry.
The one that says projected regional school district number 8, revenues projected versus actual.
What percentage is at the bottom of that sheet? Is it the 2.79, or is this an earlier version?
This is the one that was handed out tonight. It's this page 2.
What page are you on?
Page 2 there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We hadn't projected it on that sheet, but if you look at the cover sheet, you can see about halfway down, or 3/4 of the way down, number 14, excess cost.
I see it now. Yep. Okay, so just was left off of page 2. Thank you. I think what I really want to bring out, I think Rham does an excellent job. I have 2 kids that went through Rham and Rham schools, did great in school, did great in college, are now productive citizens. And I think that's a tribute to what's been going on here for years. I'm not here to tell you, to talk about anything in terms of budgets and what you fund where. That's your job. I know my job is to
try to get a budget that will pass. When we started this budget season, we met back in, I believe it was second week of October. And we met with all of our boards, and I don't remember, I know Dr. Swinson was invited, I don't remember if he was there or not. But we decided that this had to be a team approach. We all had to work at it. And I think we all are working at it. I appreciate seeing your budget, come down a little bit at a time. And I appreciate some of the decisions that you're making. They truly are management decisions. But this is a delicate balance. We have to be able to pass a budget. And we all, as property owners, have to realize that people, as it's been said tonight, people come to Hebron, come to Marlboro, come to Andover because of the quality of the schools. And we certainly don't want to hurt that. And hurting that will do nothing more than decrease further the value of the property. So, thanks for what you've done so far, and we would appreciate anything else you can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Elaine Griffin, North Pine Road in Hebron. I'm going to continue with Mal's inquiries as to revenue. I can see where the 608 for the excess cost was included, but where are the federal grant revenues? I don't see that reflected as an offset anywhere in the budget.
Federal grants are listed as, the federal grants are listed on page 8. I think one of the things you need to remember about some of the federal grants is we're not allowed to supplant local expenditures with the federal grants. So we need to be very careful about the way we use our federal grants. For example, IDEA, those pay for additional services, and we can't use that as a budget reduction. If you look at...
But are those additional expenses within your budget?
I'm sorry?
Are those additional expenses you're referring to within your budget?
We have traditionally used it to pay for additional services. For example, we've used it to pay for physical therapy, occupational therapy. It doesn't show up in the budget or is in there in a reduced amount. So we need to be very, very careful about that. That's one of the things the auditors look for.
Okay, that's understandable, but when you reflect the 15-16 actual and the anticipated for 16-17, I would have hoped to have seen what 17-18 might have been.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Terry McManus, 169 North Street. Just someone mentioned perspective earlier, and I just wanted to add a little bit of perspective. For the last 5 years, the grand list of Hebron has increased by 4%. There's a reason for that. Part of that reason, I believe, has something to do with our taxes. Our increase in taxes is quality of life. As you go forward with the budget, you need to keep that part of the perspective in mind. The other one's a question. Is there any possible way to postpone the vote of your budget until after the budget for the state comes out? I know I can see some smiles there, but we just had a discussion of $600,000, nobody knows what it means, which is about 10% of the budget. It's pretty big. Is there any way we can do this? I don't see how I, as a voter, can go to the polls on the second, put down a mark on the ballot, really believing in that budget. And the city council also, I don't know if there's a way to do that. Send this stuff.
Yeah.
No.
It's a statutory requirement that a budget be voted on. And I just want to tell you an interesting anecdote. When the legislature was considering postponing the vote on the budget, it was only at the last moment that regional school districts were talked about. When you talk about cutting ECS aid, regional school districts are not talked about there. We don't have a way of calculating that aid. When you talk about special education aid, we don't have a way of calculating it. We're like orphans. And we search continually for answers to the questions. And they choose to ignore us. And sometimes that's disheartening because regional school districts are combinations of towns so that money can be saved. I don't know. I can't answer your question, but those are some of the issues that we're faced with. That's why if you look at my first budget, it came in at 6% because we were all over the lot trying to figure out what to do and how to calculate reductions in aid, increases in aid. And all it did was list the towns, no percentages for regional school districts. So it's a difficult road that we walk down. And we're trying to do it as judiciously and as cautiously as possible while preserving programs, protecting taxpayers, and meeting our statutory requirements. So that's why if you look at my slide, I always say at the beginning, we need to address our statutory requirements. And that's special education and all the other things that go along with statutory requirements.
You have another comment now?
Yeah, can I just answer his question about the town? Dr. Szymanski, Dr. Szymanski stated that under statute, they have to vote on I think it's the first Tuesday after, or not vote, or they have to, they don't go to referendum. They have to vote on their budget. I believe it's the first Tuesday after the first Monday.
It's usually the Tuesday after the first, but the district meeting is set for the first Monday in May. Then the district meeting will adjourn the vote to adjourn to referendum, and then the referendum will be the approval or disapproval of the budget.
Now, the referendum is not required by the budget, by the statute, but the vote on that day is required. Under the town of Hebron, anyways, it's in our charter. And I personally had asked the town manager to run it by the town attorney. Could we not vote on that day, and what would be the results? What would we be exposed to? And the town attorney recommended that we do not violate the charter. The legislature is the only one that can relieve us and the regional school district of voting when we vote. And so far, that has not passed, and it's not even on the floor anymore.
Well, if I may just ask this
Thank
question.
you, Dean.
I may just ask this question, and for simplification, because your work, it's been all over the place, it's been a lot of hard work. Say we pass a budget that takes into account the favorable percentages that the $600,000 helped. It's a nice presentation. Say we pass that budget. What happens if the state doesn't give us or does take away? I'm not even sure how this reflects that $600,000. What happens to your school and to our town? We spent a couple $1,000s here or there in the past. We're talking millions of dollars this year.
It's a very interesting question. It came up in one or two of our board meetings because none of us as board members have ever had to deal with a deficit. And in fact, there were some changes mid-year. Some of the increased costs for special education came in this budget, and Mrs. Neal has put in a budget freeze to try to offset that as much as she can. Dr. Smith, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, if you look at this year's budget, since the budget began, the number of special education students that were placed out of district increased by 10. Those are legal placements that follow the state law. We don't have any choice in the matter. We need to provide those programs. We need to provide them in the best way possible. That's one of the reasons I suggested that we take a look at the way we provide programming, just so we could provide it in the most cost-efficient, cost-effective way, yet meeting the needs of the students. I think that,
I'm sorry, I think the specific question was, just in the interest of time, in the event with the budget or whatever comes through, we're not going to get the ECS funding back to a gross amount for special.
I think that we would have to address that. If you look at one of my slides indicated that I on my own figured a way to calculate how much of that reduction in ECS belonged to Rham. The state didn't give us any guidance in that. But I think that in good conscience and being good citizens, that would have to be done.
At this time, what I would like to do is at least let the board members, anybody who would like to comment. And just for the format, for everyone to know, because it's the first time you're at this meeting, what we're going to do as soon as the comments and questions have ended is we're just going to adjourn this meeting. And depending on how many of you are interested in staying afterwards, depends whether or not we stay in this room or go back to the clerk's room. So, because what will happen here is we'll go into a budget meeting from as we leave from here. So at this time, I'd just like to start on my left.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here today. I think it's very important that we hear from the public and that we hear what the issues and ideas are that are out there. I'm glad you're willing to work with us, and I'm glad that you're willing to look at all of the areas.
So I do have some questions, actually. I guess I'd like clarification on the 10 teachers that were spoken about that I understand retirements and so on, but how is that affecting departments and most importantly our kids and teaching staff? Because I thought that that was something that could happen due to declining enrollment, and I feel less clear about that after hearing some of the comments, so I'd like to hear about that.
Dr. Szymanski, the question, would you give Judy's question?
What we did is understanding that if you would understand that with the middle school enrollment dropping, we had to go from, we had to look at, we wanted to maintain the team structure. So that by reducing staff slowly, and Dr. Cerisi's work to form the Inquiry Academy, that allowed us to reduce one team in the middle school, recognizing the declining enrollment, yet maintaining favorable ratios in the classrooms and allowing the program that's in place to go forward.
I mean, will that be spoken about more? Are we going back to the typical meeting? I'm unclear in that. So, yeah, so that's fine for now. I hope that we can just hear more about that.
I want to remind you a few things that were mentioned here, to reiterate those things. And just to say that this has been a particularly very difficult year. I've spent a lot of time looking through this budget, and it's just hard to find the numbers that everyone's looking for. I do want to point out that the per pupil cost for our high school is close to the lowest in the state, especially if you just consider high schools. You need to take that into account. You need to take into account what was mentioned earlier, that we have a lower per pupil cost than Hebron, despite despite the metal shops, the wood shops, and guidance. There's just a huge amount of things that happen at a high school that do not happen at elementary school. Another reminder is the population changes in the school haven't really hit Rham yet. This is really just starting to hit the middle school, and that's luckily how we're able to get reduction in some costs there. But the high school hasn't seen those cuts yet, and it's a few years before we're going to really start seeing that. from the high school level. Right off the bat, we lost $75,000 in transportation grant. We have a $121,000 adjustment because of our bond scheduling that we have to come up with. We have to do raises that have been negotiated over the last few years. So there's a fair amount of built-in items. Put that on top of special ed, where we're looking at over $700,000 increase just for special ed. Maintenance, everyone's seen the budgets going up over the last few years. We've been really trying hard to get the maintenance budget in line for where it should be. We're not there yet. There's a long, long list of things that need to be addressed, and everyone that walks out the door can easily spot a whole bunch of them. And so we're not there yet, but this is a start. The only other thing is athletic program. I do very much support the program we've had here. We haven't done a lot of increases other than getting the fields back into well-maintained, so we're making headways. But this year we do have a few requests. The success of Rham is incredibly important for all of us. Our house values, the reason people move in this town is the success of Rham. We need to maintain that. We have great teachers, we have great administration, and most importantly, we have a real great parents that really make us succeed, and it's really important that we continue that trend. That was all I had.
This is going to be a first. On our comments. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Couple of things. I want to echo what I said, Mr. Jacobson just said about our house values. I've heard everybody's comments, and I hope you can offer for me. I apologize for being out of district. But at the end of the day, I think we all want what's best for our kids. Special ed, athletics, extracurricular activities, academics. So we're all about trying to provide for the whole child at this institution. I'm a little bit taken back by some people's comments about we don't need athletics. Well, if we don't need athletics, then just think about what the value of your home does. What happens to that value of your home? And it's not really just about one thing, it's about the whole thing, as I said earlier. Okay, we're struggling to find common ground. Some of these costs are not on the school itself, but on the state and the times. So we all have to take a step back and understand what's really at stake here. I'll also echo on the cost of special education. There's been some letters going back and forth, and I want to just tell people that we're not here to cut special education. We're here to try and control the cost of special education. I haven't heard that tonight. So we're here to try and understand why these costs continue to rise at the magnitude they are. Now, that has a play on everything else because it's so one-sided to the right with special education. And everything else we're asking our teachers, our administrators, everybody to make cuts in order to accommodate these increasing costs. It's not proportional. It has a direct relation to everything. So, and I will say that athletics is important to a lot of people. I can't speak who's in the audience tonight, if it's students or what, but the young man who spoke about the strength and conditioning coach and trying to move forward with this has a vision. We're trying to get what's best for every student. Again, the strength and conditioning coach is for every student athlete, and not only they're an athlete, if you want to improve your strength and become a better physical human being, it's all there. This is for the kids, it's not for football, it's for everybody. And I would just ask people to please remember, it is children. And at the last point I want to make is that, this is a difficult time where people are, we're having budgets that go up and up and up. Didn't I hear one thing about, the capital, since I chair the facility committee. The capital has been very, very important over the last 3 years. This school is cut out capital and capital funding. And if you continue to do that, it's going to continue. You're going to watch the school even go further into the crumbling that it's already doing. We have concrete that is in disrepair. We can't seem to fund it. So I plead with everybody in the audience to support the capital budget. And part of this capital budget, I came to town in 2003. I wasn't part of when the school was being built, but we're still paying and funding issues such as fire blocking for the middle school and the high school. We did the high school last year for $76,000. This year it's another $76,000 for the middle school. Understand, we are repairing deficiencies from 2003 that are at nobody's fault other than the people who were on the building committee and the engineers and everything else that happened during this time frame when people were penny foolish and tried to cut money from this budget. So we're paying for these problems. Please understand that. And that's why I plead to everybody out there in the audience that when you look at the loading dock that's degrading, and you look at all the other things, the HVAC systems in the school system that were somebody made a very poor decision, the windows. We're not even, we make inroads to try and get our windows and, we're in a lawsuit, litigation, trying to get these problems fixed. But these are problems that have existed since 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8. Please understand that we need your support. We don't need to be pointing fingers. We need to fix the problems. Thank you very much.
I'd also like to say thank you to those of you who are left and remaining. It's getting late. I just wanted to say that if you do stay for our regular meeting, we will be discussing some possible savings in the capital that were reviewed and approved by consensus in the facility committee. And that'll help lighten the load a little bit. But also I wanted to say that the special education, a lot of those increases were driven by the increase of students this year, halfway through the year, correct? And, sometimes they fluctuate greatly, and we don't have any control over that. But we still have to provide them with the education they should have. Thank you.
So unless there's no one else or if anyone else would like to address the board, feel free, and if not, then I'll close with just a couple of comments before we adjourn. It looks like no one else wants to come forward. It's great. So first of all, let me thank all of you that have been coming to our meetings, not only tonight, for the last couple of weeks, last couple of years. I really, really appreciate it, because as everyone knows, and I know you respect the fact that we're all volunteers here. There's no pension, there's no benefits, there's no health care coverage, there's no coaches for the board. But thank you for coming and sharing your opinions. One thing I'd like to do is just thank my fellow board members, because they have not stopped trying to get through and understand what it is we're faced with. We're hearing what you're talking about, the governor's budget and the change in ECS funding smacked us right in the face, but what it doesn't do, what it didn't do, is allow us to walk away from the obligation. The obligation is there, whether it's on a gross basis or a net basis. So to the extent that there is support from the state, and I know Dr. Saminsky had called me because we have these Friday talks, and it's always, Bob, have you found money? And before his cell phone signal goes out, he starts, what? I'm sorry, what did you say? So, but his guidance had changed, and at that point we were able to get off that 6% number, and we continued to look. So it's not for lack of time and effort by everyone, the administration, the teachers, the students, everyone who has been here to provide information, so we thank you for that. I do want to echo one part of my colleague, Mr. O'Connor's comments, specifically about the capital budget. When we leave from this, there will be a proposal, I'm sure, made by a member of the committee, if not Mr. O'Connor, to put forth a budget item for the capital repairs of the district. It is the first time in my 11 years on the board that we've ever bifurcated the budget from capital to operating. I know that that's very common in Hebron. What I don't want, and I know you people who are here, you're here because you care, don't think of that as a wish list of things we need to do. It is not a wish list, it is a need. These things need to be maintained for the district. So to the extent, because I know many of you, I see your faces, I know your pens are going to hit the River East at some point, and you'll either be very happy or very angry. But the only thing I ask is that you look very hard and close at the capital needs, because this place, just like your homes, have been through several significant weather events, pounding snow years, lots and lots of rain, heavy, heavy winds, and who knows what else we've been affected, but we've been put through a lot of challenging conditions. So to the extent that you're looking at your ballot, you're sharing your news about the budget, please look closely at that realistically, because I know it's not a wish list, it is a need to keep these facilities updated. So thank you for that. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn, but I do want to get a show of hands. Who will be remaining for the budget meeting? I know sometimes that can be very painful. I'm just trying to get a sense of the people, because would you have any objection to us staying in this room? It's only difficult for us to hear you. Okay, yeah, it's hard for us to hear even ourselves, so we'll go into the other room. If we run into problems with spacing, we'll just have to do that. But thank you. We'll adjourn for like 10 minutes.